Good evening. The memories of my time at Community Day School from 1986 through 1998 are emblazoned in my mind forever. When I began my tenure, there were only 90 students in the entire school, and the middle school had a scattering of children. A few years later, when we had classroom space both at the Hebrew Institute and Congregation Beth Shalom, we were trying to find a permanent home. Max Levine, president of the CDS board at the time, and I looked at a few buildings. But I visited St. Philomena's by myself one day, and I bonded with it immediately. It had history in Pittsburgh. It had a community nestled in a beautiful neighborhood, and it had ivy on the walls to suggest permanence and history combined. It was, I knew, our forever home. It took a lot of convincing for Max and the rest of the board of CDS to agree, but my passion won them over. The Federation was so magnanimous in agreeing to help with the funding from the grant they had received. We never looked back. Once we had chosen the architectural firm and the contractors, I was on site every day as the unofficial foreman. Of course, that was after the initial delay of the movie company's filming of Diabolique, of which I have to take full responsibility. My husband was called by the production manager, begging him to find someone who was associated with the school to plead their case of using the building for their movie. He had just happened to mention that his wife was the head of Community Day School, which was getting ready to occupy the building. It took on its own life from that time on. I took photos of the before and after construction and documented every change in the building. I even made a construction worker tear down some of the studs as he was building a closet instead of a Hebrew classroom. He hated the fact that I could read the blueprints and knew every corner of that building. My own office had been the convent's kitchen. How fitting. I felt right at home. The schedule was tight, as we had to open the school in the fall, and a few items were still left to do once school began. I remember being in a first grade classroom for a math class observation when the contractors took the cross off the roof 4 stories up. As it slowly was lowered down on a very large crane, a little first grader looked out the window and said to me, "Here comes the plus sign." How sweet and innocent. We donated the religious artifacts to both St. Philomena's Church in Virginia and to St. Francis Hospital in Pittsburgh to replace those that were damaged in a fire. For our hero, Bobby O'Connor, city councilman, and who later served as mayor of Pittsburgh, was very instrumental in having the community vote to have CDS obtain the school. I gave a large concrete angel to him which had been attached to the building, and he treasured it for the rest of his life. The priest of the parish deconsecrated the building from the Catholic Church, and the rabbis from Beth Shalom consecrated it according to Jewish law. The Pittsburgh Catholic newspaper interviewed me soon afterwards and asked me how I felt having a Jewish day school in the same building as a former Catholic school. I said I felt as if we were twice blessed, and they used that in their story. It had rolled off my tongue, and it was truly how I felt. On my first trip to Israel during my second year at CDS, I was with Dr. Sippy Gore, our vice principal in charge of Hebrew and Judaic studies, when we took the 8th graders, including my daughter, who was in the graduating class. To see our homeland through the eyes of our children made it all the more special. As we backed away from the wall in Jerusalem and shared with one another for whom we had said our prayers, one by one, the students and all the adults cried, all hugging each other. It was spontaneous and very beautiful. A few years later, we all climbed the Roman side of Mitzada at 4 a.m. and arrived for the sunrise service, the Shacharit, after sleeping in a Bedouin tent on the desert floor of half the night. We felt more spiritual than at any other time in the past. The March on Washington, D.C. in the late 1980s was one of the highlights of my career at CDS. So many of our families and faculty members joined us on our quest for freedom for the Russian Jews. 250,000 people from all over the country marched along with the performers and our government officials. We heard speeches, sang folk songs, made new friends, and pleaded with our congressmen and congresswomen to visit the officials in the government in Russia. They did, and they let our people go. I have so many stories still in my heart from when I witnessed hope, gratitude, sadness, and glory from each of the parents and the grandparents of the 35 children for whom we had matriculated. Our community and the greater Pittsburgh community, Jewish and non-Jewish alike, stepped up when they were called upon. Our teachers made a valiant effort to welcome the children to our school, and the little ones thrived under our care. Currently, I am teaching high school English in Florida, and I do not expect to retire anytime soon. I love the kids too much, and they are our future, and I want to prepare them to be good citizens of the world. I wish I could be with you tonight, but I am keeping a low profile when it comes to traveling in these uncertain times. I wish you all good health, joy, and peace in this new year. Thank you very much.